Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, all over the world. I'm Deontay host of Turn Up Volume Podcast, and thank you for coming for another edition, another episode to spend time with us yet again for some empowering, uplifting, and just phenomenal conversations. I'm excited this week. I can't even tell y'all how excited I am because I just have a special guest, and every week we always have different guests, people that come through and just bless us and just have wonderful conversations that inspire us and leave us jaw dropping and put us on cloud nine a lot of times. And so I'm not even going to hold her long, but our guest today, she's the widow of somebody very important to our community. If you've ever watched the TV series Roots, if you've ever heard of Kuta Kinte, if you've ever heard of Chicken George, Kizzy, all of them, this woman, from what I understand, was very pivotal in terms of making sure that we as a people were able to even see that TV series. And not only that, but she is a standalone individual herself. She has powerful works, books out, and she is just a powerhouse in and of herself. And I'm just excited to have her here today. And I know a lot of y'all seen this flyer here, and y'all have been excited because y'all could not wait to come here today to be able to hear this conversation and just partake and just to see what she has to say. Without further ado, I want to introduce to some and present to others none other than our guest for this evening, Dr. My Haley. How you doing, Dr. Haley?
I'm great. How are you? I'm delighted to be here with you.
I'm glad to have you on today. I'm glad. I know you were having some technical issues, but we can hear you. That's the most important thing. And so, once again, welcome to Turn Up the Volume podcast. I'm so excited, glad, and honored that you have taken the time out of your schedule to be with us here today, just to have some conversations, just to be able to talk to this millennial here, this young person, just to kind of get some knowledge off of your mind and just to have a conversation with you, because you are a part of our history. You're a part of our culture, and you have contributed in so many different ways. And shout out to Letitia Gomez who connected us. She's a powerful, wonderful, sweet
Oh,
person,
yes,
sweet spirit. She
yes.
connected us, and I'm just glad. From there, you and I just talked briefly, in our email or what have you. And I'm just glad to have you here today. And so
Thank you.
she was the one that made me aware that you have a book out already, and I just want to make sure I bring it up. And the book that you have, and I don't want to say it wrong. It's the Treasure of Mary Lavestre. Is that correct?
No, it's the treason of Mary Investor.
Lavestre. The trees in the very
Hmm.
Lavestre.
Hmm.
So do us a favor. Tell us about what this book is all about, and what inspired you to write it.
Well, let's see. Let's start with the inspiration first.
Okay.
After Alex and I had finished the material for Roots 2 television, uh,
Mm-hmm.
piece, um, I was telling him that I really wanted to do a piece of my own about a strong Black woman. And uh, clearly, there were many, many to choose from. I had to wait until it sang in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so George Sims, who was the researcher for Alex for Roots, was just like a mole in the Library of Congress. And he came back one day with a blurb about this woman, Mary Lester. And an article had been written by Mr. Foster, and he had written a piece in Ebony, and it sparked my interest, but I wasn't able to do anything with that material for a long time because we were just up to our neck in work. So years later, when I finally was able to go to Norfolk and track down some information to make sure that she was a real person and what she had done, what she had done, really, she was a Black woman slave, and she was able to get or copy the plans for the CSS Virginia and get those plans back to the Secretary of the Navy, Gideon Wells, in time to spur the finishing of the northern ironclad
Mm.
and stumped the South, really, in the Great Battle of Hampton Roads, those two ironclads. And what I did was fictionalize that piece. It really touched me. Her bravery and what all she had to give up. in order to do something like that. She had to walk those plans all the way from Norfolk, Washington, the capital, in what was said one of the worst winters ever in that area. And she was chased by a man who wanted to do nothing but make sure she was dead. So
Mm.
all of that went together, and it just excited me from the very beginning. And when I talked with Mr. Foster about his work, he wouldn't tell me very much. He was very closed mouthed about it all. And he said, you don't have to set out on your own adventure, which I did. And once I got the pieces together, then I fictionalized it, and it became The Trees of Mary the Bester. And what I focused on was not so much the war. The war is the background. What I focused on was the various relationships within the household of the Levester family, and what all Mary was up against in terms of what she would lose by taking those plans north.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow. And
I mean, she
so,
risked her life and everything. I mean, everything to
mm,
be able to do that.
wow. So one of the things about your book, Dr. Haley, that I thought was interesting, I thought the cover of the book was interesting. Um, what what inspired you to use this cover, and why the Confederate, I guess, flag with the stick pins? It looks like the stick pins on the inside of it.
Well, the South, it really just connotes the South, and the fact that it was a seamstress. Mary was a
Hmm.
seamstress. She was a slave of great talent, and she was making quite a name for herself as a designer in the South. By the time she knew she was going to have to give up her dreams, everything, in order to get those plans to the North.
Mm. Wow. And so my next question then is, when you look at your body of work with this particular book, um, how does it speak to what we go through today in terms of the racial tension?
Oh, they're the same.
Mm.
The same. The relationships. The um, she was under great restriction, of course. I mean, she could not. Blacks couldn't travel during that time, of course, without permission slips. And if any white person wanted to take them away, they certainly could. Um, and so, I mean, she took life and limb in hand, being out on the road at all. And even if she encountered other blacks along the way, they would not want to help her, have her in the midst for very long, because they didn't know if she might be, if the whites would be tracking her. The patty rollers, they called them, who would be tracking her and therefore bring trouble to their camp. The relationships, how are they to date the same? Say in the Levester household, for example, it turned out that Mary was the sister
Hmm.
of the mistress of the house.
Mm.
The master of the house raped Mary's mother, and from that, um, he established her in the household. The mistress established her in the household, and that was very common during those times. And the clients that Mary brings in through her work, we actually see a free black woman who owned slaves. That was common during that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
A free black woman who owns slaves. And see, that's not
Yeah,
something that.
blacks owned slaves. Blacks had property, and few did, and owned slaves. And the reason that they did most often, they would buy their relatives to keep them close. Because if you had a free person, say if another black bought a slave, that
Hmm.
person who is free would have to leave the state within 30 days. If that's your wife, you want to keep her close, of course. So
Hmm.
you bought her and kept her as your slave. That would be the only way she could remain within the
Mm.
family unit.
Wow. Wow, that's some interesting news. I never really realized or thought about that, or even knew that history, about what you just spoke. Um,
Mm.
If there's a message that you want readers to get from that book, what would that message be?
Well, the message that's in everything that I do about the strength of Black women, because that's what I came from, strong Black women. And Mary Investor modeled that. It's that, yes, there are plenty of things to be afraid of, but you do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You do it anyway.
Mm.
She had reason that she wanted to get those planes to the north to be able to help her people. So it was, yeah, she was afraid every step of the way, but anyway.
Mm. So, Dr. Haley, one of the interesting things about you is that you were married to the great Alex Haley. Um, how did you two meet? It was it love at first sight for the two of you?
We met. Alex had come to my campus, Ohio State, where I was finishing up my PhD, and it just so happened that the day that he was on campus to speak, I was going over my notes because I had to defend my dissertation the next day. So I felt that I couldn't not stay home and do that, all those years of work. So a friend of mine went to the speech and taped it for me. So
Mm-hmm.
after my defense, I sat down and listened to that tape. And it brought back all of those things that in undergrad, when I had read Alex's work, the autobiography of Malcolm X, and it had so touched me, so moved me, brought all of that back. And I thought, oh my God, to be able to work with somebody, to be able to give him some assistance that he was saying in his speech that he needed. I would love to apprentice, with someone like that and give him my strength and support. And so I sent my resume out, and I did not realize that he was away for lengths of time on a freighter working on
Mm-hmm.
routes. And so during the time, I was also doing what I was supposed to after I graduated, and that was going for my interviews in different colleges and whatnot. But what happened, Dante, was I got into this despair because you know how you'll do something that really shows up to you what you don't want to do?
Right.
And that was what I was doing. As I went out on these interviews, it just magnified the fact to me that I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to work with Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And so there came a point that I just said, I'm not going to do, I'm just going to hide at Mama's garage, right? And so that's what I was doing this particular Sunday. And my mother was always inviting somebody to Sunday dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was out there in the garage and I heard this voice. It said, hello. And this little Buddha shaped person stuck himself around the corner of the door. And he was a priest, he looked like a little ginger lamp. And he said, you come, you come. And so I went in and sat down to dinner with him. And now I had never met this man before. And my mother said he was just traveling through. He was just a guest and he knew nothing about me. But he turned to me and pointed his fork at me and he said, you must go to this next place.
Mm.
And I said, what do you mean, my interview? And he said, yes, 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 go make arrangements now, go. So it was so emphatic that I got up and I went to the phone. I called my advisor and I told him to make the arrangements because I had initially said, I'm not going. And so it was to the University of Boulder, University of Colorado Boulder.
Uh-huh.
And so I went there and with all this pluck and vinegar, right? I'm up at the podium and I'm telling them all this stuff that I'm going to do as chairman of the Department of Black Studies or Communication. And I stopped about halfway and I said, that's not what I want to do at all. I said, I want to work with Alex Haley. And I started telling them why. That, how his work had impressed me. And as a counselor at Ohio State in my fellowship, and as I counseled other black students, and invariably they would come in with their dog-eared copies of Malcolm X, talking about how it had changed their lives as well. And so I knew that when I finished my speaking and that I didn't get the job, right? So
Yeah.
I'm rushing down the aisle to get out the door, right? I just want to disappear. And this pleasant-faced black woman in the back said to me, "Hey, can we talk?" And I'm thinking, "Oh God, just let me get out of here, right?" And she
Mm-hmm.
said, "But I know Alex Haley." I practically took that lady's arm out of socket, right? And so I went and got her out the hall, and she said the reason that you haven't heard from Alex is that he's on a freighter working, on the route. She said, but as soon as he comes back, I'll get your resume to him. And sure enough, the day that I had gone home for lunch. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you've ever had such a turning point in your life where it's so dramatic, right? It just
Mm-hmm.
takes you to the edge. I
Mm-hmm.
had stopped at the mailbox and on the way to my apartment and going down, I lived in the basement. I picked up my mail. And by the time I got to my apartment, I had opened my mail. There was a letter from Harvard, and they were inviting me to come to Harvard to teach. And I was thinking, I got inside my apartment and I just leaned up against that door, the front door, and I think I wept all the way down to the floor.
Wow.
God, what do you want me to do? Do you really want me to do this? Do you really want me, And I'm thinking to myself, this. I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. And so I just held the position. And for a few days after that, I would see different people on campus, like the graduate school, saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Have you lost your mind? You have not accepted her. Have you lost your mind?" And so this one day, just shortly after that, I went back to my office. I was working as intern to the executive vice president at the university at the time. And there was a receptionist there. And she's like everybody's cheerleader, Hi, good
Yeah.
morning. How are you? You always, right? And so I'm in the doldrums. The last thing you want to hear is hi, how are you, right? So she's holding up this yellow telegram and she's waving it. I mean, this envelope. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
this envelope. And I looked there, and on the corner there, it said H. And I
Oh.
got a little closer, and it had A. Oh my God! And I got into the office, and it said L. Well, if somebody hadn't put a chair under my butt, I would have hit the floor. And the vice president came out at the time and opened the letter, and it was a letter from Alex asking, inviting me to come to Jamaica to talk about working with him. Oh my God, I get goosebumps
Wow.
even telling you about it right now. And so right after that, he sent me a ticket, and I got to Jamaica. I let everybody off the plane because it was like working to meet my dream. I needed some time to do that, right? So I get off the plane, go through customs, and this guy he was stocky, about 5'6", something like that, sweating bullets because it was so hot. And he said, "Hi, I'm Alex Haley." And there it was. And there were the times that we got into his little blue Toyota, loaded my stuff in. And we talked from the 45 minutes from Montego Bay, where the airport was, into the grill, where it's kind of was on the beach. And it just poured out all the things that he had done through the work of the autobiography for so many students who no way would have gotten through had they not had the impetus,
Mm.
the catalyze of that book, to include myself. We all came from poor beginnings. We tried to reinvent ourselves through education. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what he had done. And that was the reason that I was there. We got there to his cottage, and once he got my things settled into my room, and he showed me what he was up against with Roots, we went to work, and that was it. We went directly into work.
Mm. You know, Dr. Haley, I'm a millennial. I'll be 30 years old October 5th. And my
Happy birthday!
happy early look, we friends now, so you can always text me now. Listen, and so uh, I was in the sixth grade at River Terrace Elementary School when I first saw Roots. My teacher was on sick leave. Her husband had passed away, and we had a teacher's aide. His name was Mr. Anthony Newman, and Mr. Newman showed us Roots first. He showed us the autobiography of Jane Pittman, and I mean, and the list goes on and on and on. And so here you have a room full of sixth graders, all African American,
Yeah.
looking at Roots. And when I tell you, he showed it to us from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
Sixth graders back in like 2003, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And my jaw just dropped just looking at this film. And although I heard about slavery, I heard about, this moment that I was having in the sixth grade was just phenomenal to the point to where it was clear to me our history as a people. And even though it was your husband's story, it was just you can relate to it, you can see, you can feel it. And so
Yeah.
what was it like working with him to put that together? And let me ask you, were you around when they were filming that? What was the energy like on the set?
Oh, on the set, I was only there once, and it was electric.
Mm,
Um, it's like everybody knew they were in the flow of something life changing. Nobody knew how or why or what, but it was like, that bubble you at the pit of your stomach that tells you you're in the process of something that's bigger than yourself.
mm-hmm,
And what I saw was absolutely outstanding. They had erected an African hut, and all around the hut, which was open on the side, right? And
mm-hmm,
but around the hut, you have all of the activities of life going on. You got the food truck, and you got all these people doing other things. But right in this hut is Cecily, and behind her was Maya Angelou, as Nino Boto, the grandmother, and the mother of Kente. You could not tell within a few minutes when they at action, you could not tell that Cecily was not giving birth to Kunta.
mm,
Just her face was glistening with the pain and effort. She was holding on to the pole in the way that would give birth. And oh my God, transported, watching the birth of Kente. And then when they said cut, she stood up and life went on. I couldn't believe it. I was transfixed. I was transfixed. I amazing. And the babies that I think they had twins, if I recall. And good thing because the night when the father Omaro would hold the baby to the
mm-hmm.
sky, the only thing great. Well, you know what happens with little boy babies when you take the diaper off.
Yeah.
And so this one little baby, I mean, I don't know what they fed that child, but they had to do so many different takes, to finally hold the baby up without him peeing on overall, right? But it was wonderful. It was just remarkable. Just remarkable.
Wow. So that's amazing. So let me ask you, because we you talked about Miss Cicely Tyson, and you talked about Dr.
Yeah.
Maya Angelou. We just lost Cicely Tyson not that long ago,
Oh, yeah.
and one of the questions I had for you specifically was, what is the one memorable moment that you have of her, whether it be on screen? Give me an on screen moment, and then I want an off screen moment if you have one, like something that she
Okay.
did that just sticks with you.
The on-screen moment was the one I just told you about. It just simply, I mean, almost beyond words. And then the other one was, I'm sorry, can you, I'm so, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Um, yeah, the off-screen moment was Alex had died, and I I was in that place that's gray. I mean, I was just so numb. Um, I couldn't believe it because we had just talked the night before,
Mm-hmm.
And then the next morning, in the wee hours, 3, 4, something like that, a friend of mine from Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from, called and said, I've been thinking about you. I just wanted to see if you were okay. And I'm thinking, is this so crazy? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I was asleep, you know. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, uh, you don't know. Alex is dead.
Mm.
I mean, it was like I was hit with a hammer. I got up and I went into the kitchen and I hit the red phone, which was Alex's phone, which was blinking. Uh, there must be a mistake, but it was the message they played back was one of Alex's uh, attorneys that said, "I'm sorry to call in the middle of the night, but Alex is dead." And then he hung up. That was it. Alex is dead. He hung up. So by the time I got to the funeral, I felt like the end of a whip, you know, child's game of the whip, where you just jerked all different directions and everything is a blur.
Mm.
And then this hand reached out to me, and this hand reached out, and it was Cicely Tyson. She
Mm.
said, "Come on, girl, we got this." And she she said, "You're going to walk with me," and we walked into the church in Henning. It was just her strength. I mean, she said, "Come on," and we walked together.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I had to look twice to see who it was. I said, "Hey, Cecily Tyson." She said, "Just come on." You know,
With that motherly
it was,
tone.
you know, I have never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that strength in that moment.
What was he like as a husband?
Well, he was messy. I mean, he left a trail everywhere he went. And I'm one of these compulsive cleaners, you know. And so we would make each other just just crazy. You know, he said, "I have to go because you're making me nuts." I mean, everything for me has to be in its place. For Alex, it's like wherever it hit the floor. You know, but when he was writing, it was just the opposite. He was
Wow.
like a surgeon. He was like a surgeon. And when we were in Jamaica working together, now Alex, I don't know what it is that they have against me at this moment right here. I'm
It's okay.
sorry. Um, that when we were working, I would make sure that on the table that where Alex was working, um, it was just the copy, his green Pentel pen, and a clean tablet. That's all that could be on that table.
Mm.
And otherwise, Alex would be easily distracted. I mean, he was quick to procrastinate anyway, you
Mm.
know, but he had to work very much like a surgeon.
Mm. It sounds like he took his craft very seriously when it came to
Yes, he
writing,
did.
and
He did,
everything was
and you know,
organized.
he would make his editors crazy because he would take a chapter or part of a chapter through 14, 15 drafts, you
Wow.
know, at a time. And the way that I knew that it was getting right for him was that I would see him patting his foot. He always talked about the rhythm of
Mm.
a sentence, the rhythm of a paragraph, the rhythm of a page. And when I saw a certain rhythm with his feet, I knew that pretty soon he was going to say to me, "Take it to clean copy," which meant to take it to what the publisher would see.
Mm. Wow. Wow. What's one memory that when you think about your late husband that makes you smile?
Oh, the man could eat. Lord have mercy. Oh, could he eat? He, I was working. I was working on a project in LA, and he had a house also in Tennessee. This one day, he called me up, and we talked every day, all times of the day, several times of the day. But this particular day, Alex called me up early in the morning, and he told me he had gone out to buy a chicken. I said, "Well, that's good." And he said, "I'm getting ready to cook it." Okay. Then he called me back a few minutes later. "Well, I got the rosemary and the thyme and the sage, and I'm making a rub to cook this chicken." "Okay, Alex, I'm working on this material that you need. You said you need it yesterday. I'm glad about you and the chicken." Okay, a few minutes later, called me up. "I got the boiler pan down. I'm getting ready to put the chicken in the pot." "Alex, that's really good. I'm so proud of you that you're doing that." Okay, hang up. A few minutes later, "Well, now, what do you think I should put with the chicken?" By this time, I'm
Oh my
about to
goodness.
tell him, right? He said, I can either put cabbage with the chicken or I can put potatoes with the chicken. I said, "Alex, why don't you put, because you're working on some other company, right? I mean, I'm getting thrown off in my concentration." I said, "Why don't you put both of them with the chicken?" "Oh, that's a great idea." Okay. And he called me back. "Well, now, what about if I put noodles with it?" "Yes, Alex, you can have noodles with the chicken." "Okay, put it in the same pot." "Okay, call me back then. Um, the chicken is cooking. Oh, it's smelling so good. I got it on 350. "Okay, Alex, that's fine." Okay. After a while, I'm taking it out of the stove. "Oh, Alex, that's wonderful." I mean, I was so sick of him and that chicken. And then he said, "Oh, George Timms just came over. We're getting the plates down to eat the chicken." "Okay, that's really good, Alex. This material that you need yesterday." "Okay. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Call me back." Oh my God. We ate the chicken and we ate the cabbage and we ate the potato and I fixed some cornbread. Now I got to go to sleep. I think about that, Dante, and I mean all day long. It was about that stupid chicken. I could have knocked him in the head with that chicken. It, that was only, but he called me from all over the world about, "Oh, I'm in Harlem. I'm getting ready to eat some fat mac and greens. Alex,
What?
you just got out of the hospital with your diabetes. Do you think you should be eating that, especially at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning?" "Oh, that hospital food, you just can't get nothing to eat in there. Fit to eat." Oh, I just had to tell you, you know,
Listen, I
everywhere he went.
listen, Dr. Haley. I know about that hospital food. Just so me and my wife. Listen, me and my wife in January we just had a little girl, and so I think we were in the hospital for like a week or so. Man, we in downtown DC, Sinai, what is it, Sinai Hospital. Some days it was okay, but hospitals tend to have the worst food on the planet. Only thing is good is a ginger ale. But listen, I understand. So when you get out of the hospital, you want a good meal. So listen, what's one thing that people don't know about Alex Haley that you would like to shed light on for people, whether it be there's a lot of misconceptions about him. What's one thing that you want to make plain and clear about Alex Haley and his legacy?
Alex, Alex always talked about just wanting to do good for our folks, just doing the best he could on these different projects and everything. He just, that's what he talked about. "I just want to do it." And he was focused on that. He was written down on that. And the other thing I would think that people would like to know is that Alex never took himself seriously all that much. People. I remember he told me that this lady fell to her knees in the airport and kissing his shoes, and he was saying, "Honey, please get up from this. You got, get up." He just, it was like, "Why are you doing that?" I mean, "You all right?" He laughed about everything, or nearly everything. Yeah.
So he never really saw himself as a celebrity figure or somebody that people viewed as somebody important, somebody that contributed a lot. He just looked at himself as a the average everyday person that's trying to work hard to, whether that be tell a story, whether that be to empower and inspire his people. He never looked at himself as a celebrity.
He saw himself as an ordinary person who was allowed to do an extraordinary thing,
Mm,
you know. And he did see himself as, because of it, that he could influence young people. He was very happy to do that, and he liked to put himself in a position to help other young people as much as possible. He also helped to change people's focus about genealogy too,
mm,
family, family reunions, and that sort of thing. To bring our people together. That was very, very important to Alex all the time.
mm.
And we come to know who we are.
So, Dr. Haley, we for many of us that have been around for some time or we've had some Black History conversations, a great deal of us have been exposed to Roots, Roots the Next Generation, uh, and plenty of other works of Alex Haley. And my question is there a biopic in the works for him? And
What?
if so, who would you like to see play Alex Haley and who would you pick to play yourself?
Oh my gosh. Uh, I don't know. You caught me. I mean, if it had been years ago, I would have said James Earl, for
Yeah,
Alex,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course. Um, I would love it. Uh, I don't know uh, for, for myself. I don't know. Who would you see? Who would you see? You tell me.
For you, um, I would throw out there Taraji P Henson.
All
I think
right.
I
I
think
love
she
her.
I think she could pull it off. Matter of
I
fact, I
love
saw her. I can't think of the name of the movie she played. Where she played like this civil rights activist with the Bush, and I think in that particular movie where she had to work with a leader of like the Ku Klux Klan. I can't think of the name of the movie. Um,
Oh, the enemy is my friend or something like
Something
that.
like that, where
Yeah, yeah,
they were working for a period of time with the
yeah.
black African Americans, and they came in the same room with
Yes.
the white nationalists and the Ku Klux Klan, and so and
Mhm.
I say that because when I watched that movie, I saw her transform into the other role from the other roles that she played to that particular role, and
Mhm.
I believed that she was that woman that she was playing. I believe that's how
Oh,
good she
yeah.
was. And so when I look at getting to know you, listening to you talk, and we talk briefly, and looking at your work, and and doing my homework on you, I feel like Taraji P Henson can pull it off in terms of playing you in a biopic
Oh,
of
that would be a glory because I think she's
yeah,
outstanding as an actress.
yeah.
Yes, wonderful.
And as it relates to playing Alex Haley, I don't know who I would give that to. I don't know who
Mm.
I would give that to. I
I
mean,
know.
I don't know that. I don't know. Yeah, I would have to think about that one. You do know you have some British actors that can pull off playing African American.
Oh, yeah.
And
Don't
so
we? Yeah.
one person that comes to mind, he may need to gain a little bit more pounds. But David a Yellow, he played Dr. King in Selma. I think he could probably pull it off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. He was
yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, so it's
I
yeah, but hopefully we're
can't
gonna see.
believe that it's almost, 45 years. We'll be celebrating next year, 45 years of Roots.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you think it's still that TV series still has the same effect that it did 45 years ago?
I think, um, no, no. I think the impact and the surprise of years ago, we only had three stations and everything.
Hmm.
I mean, I think the import of Roots would be the same. But I think the difference now would be looking at a classic television show,
Yeah.
as opposed to the way shows are produced today. for young people.
Hmm.
I think it would be different. The message would be the same, but we expect different kinds of things out of films now. I
Hmm.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think it does,
Yeah.
because and I say that because I have, well, outside of my daughter who's only 7 months, I have three boys. They're
Hmm.
6, 7, and 8. They're staircases, 6, 7, and 8 years old. And so the conversations that I, as an African American father, have with my boys because they're black
Hmm.
living in America,
Yeah.
I have real conversations with them. I have
Hmm.
conversations with them to the point to where, listen, when we get pulled over by the police, this is what we do, you know, or
Oh, yeah.
this is
Hmm.
how our people were treated, you know,
Hmm.
in 1619. And so it's crazy. My wife will tell you this too. Um, I have these moments where before I give my kids snacks, I make them tell me a fact, right? And so
Oh,
one of the
terrific.
things is, oh, what does it mean to own stock? And they'll tell me, you own a small portion of a company.
Hmm.
Okay, you can have a snack. Okay, oh, well, when were like the first slaves brought here? And they'll yell out 1619. And so
All
periodically
right.
in their random everyday life, they'll be sitting at the table and they'll just start yelling out. I won't even ask them anything. They'll just say 1619, and it's a joke to them, but it's in fun. But they know what
Yes.
1619 means, and
Yes.
so
Yes.
and like one of my son Seth, he was actually home during the January 6th riot at the Capitol, and he was literally watching everything on TV, and so it goes from this is what's happening now to let's go back
Hmm.
to how this all
Hmm.
started in terms of the racial
Hmm.
tension, right? And
Hmm.
so when we look
Hmm.
at movies like 12 Years a Slave with them, or when we look at
Hmm.
movies like Roots, or um, I can't even think of the movie that Janelle Monae played in where they trapped her and put her on like this kind of plantation mindset. But when we show them movies like this, it's very interesting to my kids because my kids begin to ask questions, and so I would say movies like Roots still has that effect to where we can still educate the young children that we have, that are willing to listen, that are willing to be sponges and take that information and process it. Because believe it or not, children process things just like adults have to process things. And
Oh, of course.
so we live in Charles County in Maryland, and Charles County is very mixed. You have the school that one of my sons go to is not predominantly African American, but you have Caucasians and different races, and so it teaches him, when he's interacting with people of different races, um, how you respect everybody and love everybody, but these are the realities that we face as African Americans that are so real. And so I never want to send my children in the world not equipped to deal with the racial tension, because I want them to know that, hey, this is out there, be looking for it, watch your back, but this is how you conduct yourself. You're more than what society says you are. And so those are the kinds of conversations. And so to your question, yes, Roots is very much so effective 45 years later, to the point to where I will still watch it. It'll make my blood boil, it'll make my blood pressure go up sometimes, but
I know people still tell me that. That's why I said the import of the film would be the same. Yeah, that part. Yes, it's certainly it's a teaching tool, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It is. It's a teaching tool and it's a conversation piece. And this
Well,
is what I wanted to.
also the
Yeah.
dignity, the
Yes.
dignity. You know that scene where Kota was being beaten because he would not say his name, the new name that the master had given
Yeah.
him as Toby.
Toby. Yeah.
That's a scene that people talk to me about a lot. Your identity, who you are, know who you are, and
Yeah.
claim it. Know
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this, because you were very much involved in the movie Roots, in the scenes and the things that what it took to make the different scenes and to put the series together. So I don't know if you saw Django or 12 Years a Slave, but
Yeah.
when you look at the Roots TV series and you look at Django and 12 Years a Slave, how do they compare for you as the widow of Alex Haley, whose work Roots was? Like when you look at Django and 12 Years a Slave, did it measure up to what Roots did, or was it something totally different for you?
I think they're all a part of the fabric that teach us about ourselves and about our history. You know, different stories, same stories, but part of the quilt of who we are. They were great tellings, great movies, great films, part of the quilt of who we are.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. That's a beautiful way of putting it. If one last question for you, Dr. Haley. Um, if you could say anything to encourage a millennial like myself or anybody in general, what would that word of encouragement be?
Do something. Do something. What can you do? You say, well, gee, I don't know what I can do to help this. Do something. We can all do something. You know what I mean? Choose your lane. What is it? Once you choose it, do it. Be committed to it. Be determined and be committed to it. Do your something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can be to listen to somebody in the line in Walmart. You know, maybe that person was down and they needed to be able to talk to somebody. Do something. Do your something, whatever it is.
Well, there you have it, Dr. Myra Haley. Dr. Haley, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here and to talk with me and to allow another generation, right? Because I have millennials who follow me, young people, and people of different, age ranges who follow me. And there are some people that have heard of you off the cusp and some that have not heard of you at all. And so just you taking the time out to be here just to allow people to get to know you on another level and to hear from you, the widow of Alex Haley. Thank you so much. I don't take it for granted that you came here to talk to little old me on this podcast.
Oh,
And
listen, I loved it. I loved it. And let me just tell you, I'm working on my memoir. And so, for those of your listeners who want to know about how Alex wrote, his technique, his procedure, that's going to be in the book as well.
right.
As telling about life, Alex, during that crazy time, you know, when there was just the explosion
Mm,
of roots out there and changing the consciousness of everyone. I mean, it was opening the doors to conversations that I think previously would not have been open. The memoir will tell a lot about that, you know, firsthand up with Alex.
mm.
You know, and it's a joy to tell it too.
And so when can we expect that memoir to be released?
Sometime next year,
Next year.
Letitia is on it.
Listen, and so it's coming out sometime next year. And guess what? You have a
Yeah.
spot. You have a spot right here to advertise your book and come talk to us about
Oh,
it.
thank you so much. Thank you so
Listen,
much. It's joy. It'll tell about the Alex that people really have not known, you know,
yeah.
and tell a lot about that man.
Listen, listen, Dr. Haley, we connected now. So listen, when I connect with people, it goes beyond my show a lot of times. So listen, you connected. You have my information. We're gonna be talking, and you're gonna be back, Dr. Haley. And thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
once
much.
again. Once
Thank
again,
you. It was an honor to be on your show, Dante. Thank you
listen,
so much.
listen, listen. Don't go nowhere, Dr. Haley. Let me close my show out briefly, and then I'm gonna come right
Okay.
back to you. All right. And so we want to thank Dr. Haley for coming on for talking to us today. For talking to us about her late husband, Alex Haley. Listen, y'all do us a favor. Please, 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 please like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on all platforms. Follow me at Deontay Carroll on YouTube because once this goes off the air, it goes straight to YouTube. Also, you want to do me a favor, follow me on Twitter at Deontay J. Carroll right there. I'm active on Twitter. And every week I go live right here on Facebook Live. You want to follow me, send me a friend request. Follow me on Facebook at Deontay J. Carroll Sr. Um, and also, if you like this show, if you like what we're doing here, we want to add some things and do more things to enhance the show and to bring you wonderful content. Do us a favor, drop something in the Cash App if you want to at dollar sign DJ Carroll 91. Also, you can hit us up and drop something at Zelle at Deontay J. Carroll at gmail.com. Also, one last thing, I hope she's still on. My sis, Sierra, the newlywed Sierra. Listen, every show I try to wear something different, unique, tasteful, and that just speaks my personality. So I don't know if y'all been paying attention to the shirt that I have on, but the shirt I have on is by my good friend Sierra. It's a shirt called Godfidence. Knowing I can't, but he can. Hashtag making baby page. And y'all go and follow her on her Facebook page at Sierra Lacora page. And listen, if you don't know who this is, Sierra is actually the granddaughter of the Godfather of Soul, James Brown. All right, and so me and Sierra, we are good friends. We've been friends for a couple years now, and this is one of the shirts that she has. So y'all go support this black woman, support her business. She's doing wonderful things. She is a wonderful, phenomenal person, a good sister, a good friend of mine. So y'all go make sure that y'all cop her shirt right now. And listen, until next time, I love you guys. Y'all be good. Listen, there's so much going on. We all have a voice. Do me a favor, whatever you gotta say, do me a favor and say it with your chest. I'm Deontay Carroll, and I will see y'all next time. Holla, peace, be blessed. Love y'all.